we actually need to start with I'm not okay and you're not okay.
Yeah, we do.
And that's okay.
We're all damaged goods. I'm ugly, I'm dumb, I'm a failure, I'm worthless, I'm insignificant. Those sorts of beliefs that we form become deep-rooted foundational beliefs that then become the foundation that we build our life on. There's a lot of swirly dust in our being. A good counsellor is able to help settle that dust and then find where the dust storm originated from. You know, if I believe I'm a failure and God doesn't make failures, then one of us is wrong. Wherever there is hurt, there is healing to be found. So what does that look like? Well, that looks like leaning into what He would say about us more than I'll lean into what someone else says about me.
Welcome to Living Well with Alan Davey, and I'm Rob Holding. Alan, good to be back with you.
Great to be back again, Rob.
Let's jump straight in. There is a difference between depression and being depressed.
Well, they can be the same, of course, but feeling a bit flat, feeling a bit low, feeling a bit ho-hum or can't be bothered doesn't mean you have depression from a clinical point of view.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean depression, no. It just means we all wake up in the morning sometimes feeling a bit flat, and that's just what it is. There may be another reason behind that, and it could lead to something more, but it doesn't automatically mean that, yes, I'm now suffering from depression because I'm feeling a bit flat today.
So there is a point where I could just say, hey, Alan, just snap out of it. But then there's a point where you can't, because would you say it's clinical depression?
Yeah.
That's a different matter.
There's a little saying I like, and it says, saying just snap out of it to a depressed person is a bit like saying just stop drinking to an alcoholic or just get up and walk to a guy with a broken leg.
Yep.
You know, just snap out of it might work for someone that's feeling a little low and they just need to have a bit of a pep talk and off we go again.
Yeah. But
someone that's genuinely suffering from depression, that won't work for them.
I remember that classic Bob Newhart scene from when he was the psychiatrist and the woman came in. What did she have? Was it either claustrophobia or agoraphobia or one of them? And he just goes, "Stop it!"
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's very, very, very funny, but funny in that it's not that easy.
No, it's not that easy. Clinical depression is, they call it the black dog. The black dog follows you around. Everything looks grey or bleak or worse than that. You can't see. There's no light, even though it's a sunny day. Those sorts of things. Those are often indicators that there is something more going on that needs to be dealt with. Depression is an indicator of something that's not working.
Yeah.
And in a general sense, there are 6 forms of depression, or 6 causes, I should say, for depression.
So we're talking here depression, not being sad, being depressed.
That's right.
My mother has died.
Yeah,
I love my mother. I'm depressed. That's not depression.
No, you've got cause for being sad then. You've got cause for being low then.
Yep.
Often a person that's genuinely suffering from depression, there is no seeming cause for that from an external point of view, and they just can't seem to get out of it.
So is that often the case? There's no trigger. You can't say, well, because I was depressed about my mother dying and that led to depression. I'm sure that can happen, but are you saying that often there's no direct cause, you just end up being depressed?
But yeah. No, there is always a cause. There are 6 places that depression can come from. Only one of them originates from a biochemical basis. All of them can lead to aspects of that where we need some medication to help us, but only one of them starts from that, and the other ones come from other places. If you like, I've got a little list that I could...
Just before we get into that, because you talked about the medical side, the clinical depression isn't something that you can get over. It's a chemical imbalance that needs medication?
No, clinical depression, there are 6 forms of clinical depression. Only one of them is biochemically.
Okay, right.
The foundation is biochemical. all of them can get to a biochemical issue because the body, if the mind is in stress, anxious or something like that, it will affect the biochemistry of our body, and then biochemical consequences can be there.
Okay.
But even if they are, medication can be helpful for that, but medication isn't the solution to that unless its foundation was already just biochemical.
Yeah, because that would be similar to the whole diabetes thing with insulin. Insulin can it's a continuing thing because there's a problem.
Yeah.
So we need to deal with the problem.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. So I interrupted your 6 lists, but I just wanted to get that because I think most people that know that being depressed and depression are two different things would think the depression is the clinical chemical imbalance depression that needs medicating. But so what you're saying is that that's not always the case.
Well, there's the big term for that is unipolar depression, uni meaning one, is this different to bipolar.
Yep.
Bipolar is you're up, you're down.
Yep.
Unipolar is you're just going down. You're
Yeah.
just down. You're just down, and that usually that may start in one day, but it keeps on going for days and weeks.
Yep.
So that's unipolar depression, which is clinical depression.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, so these, I've got these from Living Wisdom, David Riddell.
Mm-hmm.
So for anybody that's listening, I really recommend that you go onto David's website and look for those, that material because it is very helpful. Or do his 2-week Living Wisdom course. So here are the 6 forms of depression. Only one of them originates from a biochemical foundation. Here's one, hopelessness or powerlessness. So when we feel hopeless or powerless, it's like, what's the point? And so that leads to clinical depression.
There's no way that I can see out of this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's the symptom that brings about the clinical depression.
Yep.
Another symptom is a sense of meaninglessness. It brings a loss of motivation. So life's meaningless. Another one is echoes of abandonment, where something in your past has happened and you've had a sense of abandonment and you feel that you've lost self-confidence, there's no point.
That's very me-centered, isn't it? It's they're all me-centered, but that's like it's my interpretation of events as opposed to events, or because I think you said this a lot of times. That as children, we're good. We take events in really well, but we don't interpret them very well.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So I think to me, I'm thinking at that point is of abandonment. It's like my feeling abandonment may not necessarily mean that I was abandoned at any point.
No, but it's the belief you formed.
Yeah.
And so you're living out of that belief.
Yeah.
These are all about what we believe.
Yeah.
All of these are about what we believe.
Yeah.
And that's where the trace, face, replace comes in, to find out what it is that we believe that's causing us to be depressed.
And the triggers too. There's those triggers that will bring you into that feeling.
Exactly. Yeah, when the river runs low, the rocks show. And so something crops up and up comes the ugly feeling, which sets you back onto that, back on your butt, and you're down again and down again and down again. Which
is default. I mean, it's almost like an addiction. I spoke to some guys over the weekend when we were in Hawke's Bay, and I spoke about my addiction to pornography for many, many years, and learning to recognize what the trigger was that made me seep back into that.
Yeah.
So with something like this abandonment or the other ones, it's go. So what is it that triggers? Maybe if you're a salesperson and you're looking forward to a sale and you're expecting it to go ahead, and it doesn't go ahead.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the trigger.
Yeah.
Which has got nothing to do with the feeling or the depression, but that's the trigger.
And that's why those things need to be like I just said before, depression indicates something that's not working.
Yep.
And so depression in itself isn't, I mean, it is the issue, but the issue comes from somewhere else. And if we don't find out what that something or somewhere else is, then we will find ourselves going back there and back there and back there. And pills can help. Medicine can be great for settling out some of those missing trace elements and stuff like that. But if we haven't found what's generated it in the first place, then we're more than likely to slip back into that again. So another one is just a burnout. You know, when we're just doing too much and we get weary and we're completely run down. And so then we need to be able to work through that one. Another one is internalized anger. That's a really interesting one.
Would lead to depression.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. When we have been violated, that's a big word. I was trying to think of something a little softer, but anyway, when we've been violated in whatever way, it is right for us to project anger. Anger is a right response to a violation of any sort. We get angry at the person that's violated us. But especially when we're a little kid, when we've been violated, we look at the big person that's potentially been the violator, and we look at them and we think, well, they're the big person, so they can't be wrong. I must be wrong. Yeah. So rather than projecting the anger out to the oppressor, we project the anger in to ourselves, and then we beat up on ourselves for allowing whatever happened to have happened.
Yeah, this happens a lot with marriage breakups, with kids blaming themselves for the marriage breakup.
Yeah, exactly.
And you grow into that, you take that into your adulthood and into your own relationships.
Yeah, and that's why we need to be able to work through those things. I had a lady, this is quite dramatic, but I had a lady, lovely Christian woman, served in ministry, served on the mission field. I ran a seminar somewhere, not in the Waikato, and her husband came, watched the seminar, realised there was something for his wife there, and so he invites me to go see her. The reason she couldn't come to the seminar was because she's in a wheelchair. She was in her late 60s to early 70s. So I go visit her, and she shares with me that when she was a little girl, she was abducted and sexually molested and then released. The parents had been trying to find her for hours. Right. They never found her until there she was walking along the road. So she was chastised for getting lost. She never had an opportunity to share what had happened, so she internalized it all. And she blamed herself because the parents got angry at her. It must be her fault.
Must be my fault.
And so her line to me was, from that she formed the belief that she was dirty, bad, worthless. And she internalized that within herself. And I personally believe that was why she was in a wheelchair, because the reason she was in a wheelchair was because her neurological system was breaking down. It was a diagnosed thing, was breaking down, causing her not to be able to be mobile. And so all that came from that. And so when I was able to share that sort of stuff with her, like I say, I was only the second person she'd ever shared that with. She's in her late 60s. That potentially had the potential to be part of the healing process for her now, because she was able to, rather than internalise the anger, realise it's actually it wasn't my fault. It happened out there, and then she could process it. So that's where that internalised anger becomes a big deal for people.
That's, I was thinking, because I said to you on the phone the other day about fault. There's the two-sided thing, because on previous Living Well episodes, we've talked about our relationships and how do I come to the point where I not just acknowledge that I have a problem in the relationship, but admit that it's my problem and I am at fault. And the other side is admitting that actually in this case, I'm not at fault and I wasn't at fault.
That's where being able to unpack things is so helpful.
Yeah.
Like I said numerous times, if you put a H for hurt on your hand because you've had a yucky event and you go like that because you don't know how to deal with it. Now, that can be as a child or an adult, but usually in our childhood, we've hidden it like that. It's still there. And then it oozes out. Like this lady, it oozes out literally physically through her body. This has
affected her physically.
And other areas, mental health, of course. But it's not until you go like that that the H can actually be dealt with.
Yeah.
And God longs for us to be able to come out from behind the trees that we're hiding behind because of our guilt, shame, and bring it out into the open. And then a problem shared is a problem that can be seen.
Yeah. And often it takes someone, a counsellor or a psychologist or whatever, to correctly identify the problem. I remember years ago I was working in radio in Alexandra and had a reel in the clavicle, in the shoulder blade. And the bottom part of it was just so sore and I couldn't sleep because of it. And I went to a chiropractor and he goes, does it hurt there? On the back of the neck. And I'm like, ow! He goes, you're sleeping on 2 pillows. Yeah. And I'm going, how do you get that? He says, well, 2 pillows, your head's on an angle, you're pinching that nerve and it's presenting there.
Yeah.
I would have been trying to exercise my shoulder to fix the problem until an expert comes along and goes, actually, Rob, the shoulder's not the problem.
Yeah.
It's just presenting there.
And that's like I say, with depression is an indicator of something that's wrong.
Yeah.
Depression itself certainly is a big deal and needs to be sorted, but the sorting of it goes down into where that has come from. So that the final one is the biochemical.
Yeah.
And that just means getting good medical advice to balance back what's imbalanced in your body.
In my mind, I'm thinking the biochemical depression cannot come of its own. It's got to result from other depression.
No, the body is a fine-tuned instrument. You were talking about guitars earlier.
Yeah.
The body is a fine-tuned instrument, and things can go. Is the right word biologically wrong? Probably is.
Probably.
Within your body that then needs to be corrected with the right kind of medication.
So the biochemical depression is not just I was depressed and it led to that.
Like I said, there are 6 forms of depression.
Yeah.
Only one of them is the genesis is biochemical.
Yeah.
The others can get to that because stink thinking causes our body to
we're triune beings,
be
body, mind,
exactly.
and soul. Yeah.
Yeah.
Years ago, went to the doctor. I said I'm 47. I think I was. So they would go and bloke, I'll go and get my prostate checked. And the doctor he goes, he said we can do it all now. We can do it all. We can do your prostate, we can do your blood sugars, we can do, So give him my blood, he rings me back a week later, he says, your prostate's fine, you've got diabetes.
Well, the presenting problem is what gets a person to the doctor or to the counsellor. And it takes an appropriate diagnosis to find out what's really going on.
Yeah.
Like you doing the bloods, for me, it's like asking the appropriate questions. I had a client very recently, and I said to them, I'm doing a podcast, would they mind if I used them as an example? And they said they were fine with that. So I'll tell a little bit of this person's story. They came to me, their issue is feeling flat, feeling disconnected, things like that. So you'd sense a sense of depression there. On the outside, this person looked quite happy, but on the inside, they were very unhappy.
Yeah.
And in talking through some things, and I'll use the word that this client used for me, Christian person, I'm a worthless piece of crap. That was what they said.
That's how they felt.
That's what they thought about themselves. Yeah. So they felt like a worthless piece of crap because they believed they were a worthless piece of crap. And so with that thinking and that feeling, their whole life had imploded into just numb. And in fact, in talking with this client, I could be talking to them and I'd ask them a question and I would literally watch them shut down because she felt like a worthless piece of C, believed she was a worthless piece of C, and so when I asked a question that she couldn't quite relate to, she didn't know how to respond, so she would just turn herself off.
Yeah.
And so there's an indicator of something that truly needs to be worked out well with that person because their issue is a deep issue that needs to be processed well. Otherwise, they're now just stuck.
Which is something you can't just get over by taking the reverse statement and making it a mantra.
Yeah. And that can take a bit of time to help that person recognize the truth.
Yeah.
Because, a lovely Christian person from a lovely Christian home, but some stuff has happened for her in her life. And so she believed that from a very young age. And so now it's about helping her recognize that's not true. And one of the things I did for her was, because her line to me was, I'm told that I'm under spiritual oppression. There's a spiritual battle. And I said, are you aware that the only access that the devil has into your life is through the lies you believe? She said, no, I wasn't aware of that. And the greatest access God has into your life is through the truth you receive. She said, oh, okay, I hadn't thought of it like that. And I said, there are only 3 people at play here, only 3. And I said, do you know who the most important one is? And I let her think for a little while. And she dared to say, me? And I said, you are the most important one. Because you, if that's the devil, that's you, and that's God, nothing to do with size or anything like that.
Yeah.
But that's you. Because of what you believe, the devil is actually having an influence on your life. God wants to have that influence on your life, but he is, because of what you believe.
Yeah.
And when you're able to renounce the devil, submit to God, James 4, submit to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Draw near to God, and he will draw near to you.
Yeah.
When you're able to do that, you'll begin to experience some different things in your life. Now, that's easier said than done, and I 100% get that.
I was just about to use the Rachel Hunter quote there. It won't happen overnight.
No, but we've got to start somewhere, and you've got to start working towards it. Like I say, she didn't mind me mentioning these things, keeping it vague, of course. I used to have a default mood. My default mood was, I'm just tired. I had chronic fatigue for 15 years. It was horrible.
Yep.
And it started with glandular fever, probably stayed in my body for maybe up to 6 months, but maybe anyway. And so my body recovered from that, but because I still just felt tired, I would wake up in the morning, body scan, I'm still just tired. And so I remained just tired for 15 years. That was my default mood until I processed that. Should have processed it earlier, but anyway, slow learner, eh? Well, her default mood is the feeling like crap. That was just that's just her mood. I'm just feel like crap. And so I said to her recently, I said, this is a hard one to take, actually, because we can choose our moods. We can choose our moods. And I said to her, do you realise that you can choose your mood? Simple but not easy, but you can choose your mood. And she said, oh, but I've lived in this for a long time. I said, yeah, you can still choose your mood. What mood would be a better one to choose? And she said, I'd like to be happy. And so this is just a little experiment that I'm going through with her. This is a regular encounter I'm having. And so I'm interested to see where this goes, because we're just trialling some things. So I said, when you're feeling like the worthless piece of sea that you feel you are, can you decide, no, I'm actually going to choose a different mood here. I'm going to choose happy. I said, try that. Even try it for half an hour and see what happens. And that's when we catch up next time, let's see where that goes. Because the goal here is to help the person recognise that they actually have some power here. Yeah. They have way more power than they thought they did have.
I think with things like that, I was talking to somebody again on the weekend. I don't know who uses the term find your happy place. It was Mark Twain who said, I can go for 6 months on one good compliment. And I know exactly how that feels. Yeah. I remember performing at Parachute one time. They did an oldies set. I don't know why they asked me. But they did an oldies set with Steve Apirana, Guy Wishart, Derek Linden. I just did a couple of songs between each of the artists. And afterwards, and I'm walking off, and this guy comes up, he says, I was listening, you're a really good guitarist. I was down for 6 months. I go, I'm a singer, See, my recharge place is give me classical music through some really good speakers for an hour, right? And I can recharge. I was saying to this guy at the weekend, I said, what makes you feel good and feel happy? He goes, walking down the beach. I said, well, go and walk down the beach. If you're in this piece of feeling, and you know that walking down the beach makes you happy, put everything aside and go for a walk down the beach. A lot of people don't know where that happy or that recharge place is.
Yeah, no, that's good. And that is really important. That's right. Because when we can get into that happy place, that can help with our physiology, which then can help with our mind. Our culture at the moment, and it's getting worse, statistically it's getting worse. In fact, I heard it on the radio recently, how bad it's getting, and that's the mental health statistics. Once upon a time, what was it, a decade ago, it's increased by over 100% in a decade anyway, mental health issues. And they were talking in regards to teenagers here, but it will probably be across the board. And so the question I ask is, we talk about mental health without really processing what does that really mean, mental health. A friend of mine has got cancer at the moment, skin cancer.
Yep.
A melanoma cancer, and it's not looking good for him. And so we know how we know that we should put on a shirt and put on your sunblock and keep away from all those, because that will help prevent it. But we're not talking about prevention for mental health. We're talking about supporting for mental health, 100% into support.
Yeah. But no, I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
And so we need to find out what's causing this, because if
how do we slap for mental health?
Exactly.
Yeah.
30 years ago, the mental health issues are not what they are today.
I worked as a school chaplain for 6 years, and I seriously believe that the main reason is, see, when you and I were growing up, we had a lot of positive input into our lives from our parents, from society in general, which is not there today. That positive input, and it counteracted. If you talk about nutritional health, so you've got in our day, we were getting vegetables and we were getting this and we're getting good food. We had a little bit of junk food, but it was counteracted majorly by the nutritional food. In a mental health way, there's none, that nutritional food isn't there. Everything is just negative. Yeah. And that's what's being taken on board, which is bringing that mental health level down.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And social media is, that's
if I don't get 15 likes on my post, I'm depressed.
And people are able to say whatever they like in anonymity.
Yep.
And it can hurt like heck for somebody. There's a documentary worth watching. I hope you don't mind me doing a bit of a plug here, but it's called The Social Dilemma. Have you ever seen it?
I have heard of it. I can't remember having watched it, but
okay, it's worth watching. The Social Dilemma. Any parent out there, I would encourage you to watch that. That will help give you a bit of a balance anyway of what social media can do, does do, and is doing in the lives, especially of our young people. Getting back to working out, putting on a shirt to avoid getting skin cancers and things like that, what can we do? We've got 4 fundamental emotional needs. This is for all humanity. 4 fundamental emotional needs for all humanity. And these are needs, not wants. Need to be innocent, because guilt and shame and blame is so crushing. Need to be significant, because worth and value is so important. Need for safety, or another word for that is a sense of belonging. Need to know I'm connected and I belong. And to need for purpose and for progress, because that's where hope comes from, having purpose and having progress. And so when those things are in short supply, then because these are genuine needs, we will find ourselves going to places in our thinking that is destructive to us. And when we think about it, where are those needs met? Need for innocence, guiltless, blameless. Well, I'll tell you what, Rob, I'm very mindful. My hope in these podcasts is non-Christian people watch them. So I'm very mindful of that. But there are some things that I need to share that that are, for me, so blatantly obvious from a Christian point of view, that if I don't share them, then I'm doing everyone a disservice. So where do we get our innocence from? You know, guilt and shame, how big a deal is that in a person's life? Well, I've experienced guilt and shame. I know what that feels like. I believe there's only one place we can go to be free from guilt and shame, and that's Christ. He paid the price. He set us free from guilt and shame because he took it all for us.
He's the only one. You know, you talked about before about you know, we search back these things and we can look at it and say it's not my fault thing. But I think from a human sense, we can compartmentalize it. We can lock it away. But Jesus is the only one that can actually remove that guilt and shame from you completely.
And I've experienced that. You know, thankfully, I got saved when I was 27, and I had significant guilt and shame in my life because of stuff, mostly that I'd done, to be perfectly honest, rather than done to me. And I have scars of that now, but I don't have the wounds of that now.
Yeah.
Because he's healed it. He has healed that for me, and I'm just so grateful. Worth and value. Where do we get our worth and value from? Well, you know, we can find that in other places, but to be perfectly honest, where fundamentally is my worth? Well, fundamentally my worth is based on where I've come from.
Yeah.
Who created me? Created in the image of God. So there's my worth. There's my value. And a sense of belonging. Well, we can get that from other places. Gangs do that. Clubs do that. But a true sense of belonging, well, you know, who's my Heavenly Father?
Yeah.
Who do I really belong to? And who's in my family, truly? You know, those sorts of things. Well, that goes back to God as well.
I think because with a club or with a gang or with whatever, it's often a case of, in some ways, performance-based. You know, you belong to the chess club as long as you keep playing chess and keep doing well at chess. With God, you belong to him because he made you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the safest place we could ever find ourselves in being and living. And then, obviously, you know, progress or growth or hope for a future. Well, I have a hope for a future now, but I have a hope for an eternal future as well. So that even if it all hits the fan now and I've lost some things, my orientation is still up. It's not, oh, heck, now it's all gone, there's no hope. No, even in this, he will walk with me.
Yeah.
And beyond this, to the other side, there is something waiting for me that's well worth my life pursuit.
Yeah. Something to truly look forward to.
Absolutely.
Not in the sense that I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to the new such and such movie.
Yeah.
This is something to truly look forward.
Yeah.
Well,
it's substance and security.
Yeah.
Yeah, substance and substance is probably the right word. It's a bedrock of what's available to us. I don't see anything in our culture that offers that, to be blunt. Not to that degree. We offer veneers of that or elements of that which are fantastic, by the way. So I'm not negating any of that. But when it all hits the fan, where is my orientation now?
Yeah.
Well, he is still there.
Yeah.
I've written an article, like I've mentioned to you a few times that I write articles for a paper.
Yeah.
I've written one that's going to go in soon on this topic. So it sounds like a segue, doesn't it? And I guess maybe it is. And so I've got it here, so it must be a segue,
Must be, yeah.
So I'm going to read this if you don't mind.
Absolutely. Let's finish with that.
In genuine frustration, someone I was supporting recently asked, "How do you find out who you are?" This is my thoughts on that question. We had our grandchildren over the other day, and one of them tipped a wooden jigsaw puzzle out and asked me to come and help them put it back. But because I didn't know what the pieces were meant to end up looking like, I was stumped until one of them that had done it a time or two came and helped me put it together. Life can feel a bit like that. We turn up here with the feelings, with what feels like the pieces of a puzzle scattered all over the place and little idea of what the heck the puzzle we're trying to put back together is meant to look like. It's no wonder so many of us become anxious, stressed, disillusioned, and even depressed. Like the person I mentioned at the start, all of us have, in one way or another, sought to answer the age-old question, who am I and why am I here? Many of us have looked at our culture for guidance and have found that it falls way short in answering these kinds of questions. And as time goes on, we become more and more frustrated and disillusioned as we struggle to fit life's pieces together. In all of creation, identity is only a challenge to humans. We're the only ones that question who we are and why we are here. Evolution says we come by chance from slime in a puddle. Creation says we come from the love and will of God. Evolution says we are of goo. Creation says we are of God. In the Bible, it informs us that humans were created in His image. Even the word human comes from the word humus, or soil, or as the Bible puts it, the dust of the ground. We really need to look to God to advise us of who we are and not to a broken people behaving badly or a culture disconnected from its true identity. We go astray when we allow anything other than God to define our identity. Anything less than the Creator's view of us is less than who we are. And when we believe we are less than, we have the tendency to behave accordingly. Good mental health is practiced when we agree with what God says about us. And poor mental health is practiced when we disagree with what God says about us. The meaning of life is to know whose image we come from and to open ourselves up to the image giver and allow Him to love and guide us in and through our life. Yes, we live in a broken world, but we live in it with the availability of a loving and healing God.
Alan, thanks again so much for your time. I look forward to next time. And thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Be sure to click the link. We've got the link to Alan's website in the description. And if you'd like to see the other podcasts in this Living Well series, simply go to our website, knowmyfaith.net, and you will find them there. God bless you.